Before giving the floor for explanations of vote, after the vote, I'd like to remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. It's my understanding that the delegation of the Russian Federation would like to make an explanation of vote. You have the floor, please.
Distinguished Chair, President, the Russian Federation attaches particular importance to the careful examination of the situation in Afghanistan. We very much respectfully and carefully listen to the statement from the representative of Afghanistan, and we'd like to say that Russia and Afghanistan have friendly relations that no one can deny. We are undertaking significant efforts to the whole of Afghan who've given their lives to the fight against terrorism and express our condolences to them, and we condemn all forms of violence. There is no military solution to a conflict. We usually are in favour of a truly consensus-based resolution at the General Assembly, the text of which should take into account the current state of affairs and reflect the comprehensive and consolidated approaches of the international community to seeking an effective and long-term resolution in Afghanistan. But this is relevant even particularly now, when Afghanistan is going through some fundamental changes. Unfortunately, for the second year running, despite active efforts made during the work on this text of the resolution, we faced attempts by some delegations to completely ignore our assessments and our approaches, smothering the people who are against the consensus. And we, despite the fact we very actively involved ourselves in efforts to address the situation in Afghanistan, in such circumstances, we were compelled to call for a vote. And we're doing this as friends and as active participants of the negotiation process on Afghanistan, because we are trying to achieve that our views are not ignored, but actually taken into account and should be then reflected in the relevant text of the resolution. It is disappointing that during the work on the text, some objective facts were completely ignored, facts pertaining to the terrorist and narcotics threat for the security of Afghanistan itself is suffering, but also the threat to neighbouring states, including in Central Asia. Terrorist activity is often seen through a lens of an unagreed concept of violent extremism. We were surprised by the unwillingness of some delegations to adequately reflect efforts on the peace process, because in fact all of our steps at this stage should be focused on providing assistance to the people of Afghanistan in creating a formula for sustainable national reconciliation with the involvement of all social and political forces in the country, including, of course, women. It remains imperative to reserve a key role for Afghans themselves in addressing problems in their country. There's no need to say how much we respect Afghanistan, how we respect its people. Russia is working to ensure that all Afghan political forces, without exception, and key external players are working on a unifying platform, underpinned by a single set of rules. The outcome of this should be a real launch of inclusive intra-Afghan negotiations. And this is indeed the focus of the efforts in the Troika format between Russia, China and the USA, with active participation from Pakistan. These efforts are focused exclusively on supporting an Afghan-led peace process. At the same time, further confirmation and recognition of the role of the Troika has been brought by indication both from Afghan itself and from key regional and international players about their interest in joining these consultations. We are convinced that our common task when negotiating this type of text, much like today's resolution, is to avoid a disconnect between UN decisions and the regional reality. Deliberate deviation from an objective reflection of the real picture is a road to nowhere. It does not help to resolve the conflict in Afghanistan. We trust that in the future, The coordinators of the dossier will objectively try to even more encounter a broader range of positions in order to achieve a consensus-based document. Moreover, considering the Afghan people, it is something that the Afghan people deserve. They deserve our support. I would like to say that to do this decision at the General Assembly, should be more focused on the real priorities of modern Afghanistan. The resolution 74 only has PP, so we need to, on principle, have fewer words, but more agreement, both in the UN and in the region, in order to support stability and a lasting solution in Afghanistan. We trust that our distinguished German colleague will shoulder this responsibility. Briefness doesn't mean it's imbalanced. In conclusion, I would like to highlight that the Russian Federation consistently supports efforts of the Afghan people for lasting peace in their country. We are confident that launching region-wide cooperation with active participation of Afghanistan itself will enable a stable, multifaceted form of development in this part of the world. We stand ready to work further to increase coordination in activities of all states in the interests of establishing peace and stability in Afghanistan. I thank you, distinguished colleagues, for your attention.